Welcome to the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast with your host, Brandon Seigel. I'm a published author, speaker, entrepreneur, and private practice strategist dedicated to transforming the way that healthcare functions. This podcast is all about empowering you to create the change you want to see. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast. Today, I am so excited because I am bringing someone special on to our episode. I am bringing Leila Adnani with PS Creative. And Leila has transformed a lot of things. She's helped transform this very podcast itself. Her company has helped produce many different factors for my organization, whether it's from our conference, some of the experiencing there, all the way through our podcast, our social media presence, everything. So for those who listen, watch, learn, and grow, this is the person you want to work with if you're looking to transform your brand to new heights. And so, Leila, I want to welcome you to our episode. It's so fun. It's so full circle to have you on this. And why don't we start with just kind of sharing your story, how you got into this and how PS Creative came about and kind of where podcasts played a part of your journey before today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I got started 16 years ago, which is crazy. I'm aging myself on air, but I had graduated college and I had expected that I would get a job at the State Department. I had gotten a scholarship to study abroad in Cairo through the State Department and studied politics, mostly with a focus on Middle East studies. And that was just kind of the game plan. Long story short, I graduate college and we are in a hiring freeze for the government roles, at least. And I had interned in finance. I really knew I did not want to go into number crunching. I was definitely more of a creative type than that. And long story short, I decided that I was going to start a business based on the things that I was passionate and really good at naturally versus what I had studied and spent my time in the classroom with. And that is how PS Creative was born. It was really one of those situations where you have nothing to lose except for a $900 student loan payment every single month. And there was no reason to not bet on myself. So long story short, this was happening in Washington, D.C. at the time. And of course, I'm fresh out of school, had never run a business before. And I really had to learn by doing. So by throwing myself in head first was how I was able to get the acumen that you talk about every single week of being a great business owner, right? I was doing probably every single thing that you talk about wrong, but I did enough right to continue to keep me going and get on the right track. So this was the first wave of digital marketing in politics. If everybody remembers the Obama era, that time frame was really that first time where it stopped being all about knocking on people's doors and calling people on the phone. And you started to have this incorporation of web, there was digital ads, there was social media, and that's pretty much how he won the election. So I was involved back in those days, really in a political side. And then, of course, we had normal clients as well. But the political stuff is where I learned the most, the fastest, because it was ever changing. Long story short, came to Arizona on a business trip. And I'd never been out here before. I'm from Orange County, California originally. And I was blown away. I was 29 years old. I knew I was ready to leave DC and I fell in love with Arizona. I decided that I was going to sign a lease and I had 4 months to decide what day my move-in was because it was a new building that had plenty of occupancy. So I went back to DC after that trip. I told all of my friends, my clients, that I would be moving to Arizona. Everyone thought I had lost my mind because I had built up such a big book of business in the 8 years that I had been in DC. And I just took that leap of faith. I was ready for a change, moved out here, really got out of the political side of things and decided that understanding the small business needs and the for-profit business needs would be a beneficial use of my time. I was ready to just pivot. And long story short, I knew that the next wave of marketing was really going to be video and content based, thus podcasting. So we got into podcast production in 2018, technically, got our own studio in 2020, and then continued to expand from there, which is how, of course, I met you, and the rest is history.
Well, and something that's really interesting, and I don't know if Leila remembers this, but the way that I found Leila was I had a podcast editor who happened to be in Arizona, and I had done my first, 3 or 4 years of podcast before we went video. He was like the audio engineer, the everything. And I wrote him right around, I don't know, a couple of years ago. And I think I'm like, hey, I am thinking about bringing back the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast. It's been a couple of years. And for those who don't know, this podcast is ultimately what drove my business growth. So when I started this podcast, I think it was 2020, right around COVID, I started it. And I was doing one episode a month. That's it. One episode a month, no video, no nothing.
You were truly a
And
unicorn of a show, by the way.
yeah, yeah. And it just took off. Like I was getting business every week from it. But I got to a point where my business had reached my goal objectives. And I was like, I'm done doing this podcast thing. And so after, when a couple of years ago, I was like, hey, all of a sudden I had more employees. My focus on my business had changed, all these different things. I'm like, I got to get back into this. And I reached out, and sure enough, he said, if you're going to work with someone, you got to work with Leila. Leila owns PS Creative. And I just think it's amazing when one podcast producer refers to another in the same area, category, everything, because that producer knew where they couldn't deliver the next level of need that I had. And so I think it's phenomenal. And I've obviously, our audience has seen me in your studios. They've seen me in, you helped create my home studio or my office studio. They've seen all those aspects. And so it's just interesting also when I think about how long you've been in this space. And when I look about, I've been in business for 20 years, whatever we want to call it, and what marketing looked like then versus now. And so I want to be clear with everyone. 20 years ago, digital marketing still existed. It wasn't that it didn't exist, but it looked so different. So my recollection, and please, if I'm wrong, let me know. My recollection was like, hey, you do ads. If you can do ads on Facebook, that was like the big thing. And SEO was a big thing. And search marketing on the Google homepage was a thing. But there wasn't really true, authentic, what I'm going to call media-based organic growth. And I think like YouTube, I remember when YouTube came
Yeah.
and I was like, what is this thing? And those who got on YouTube early hit major success. I mean, some of the wealthiest people in this creator space have come from a YouTube background. And so I guess as we look at like kind of this digital net, I'm just throwing this out there, like, where do you think, like, if you were to describe where we've come from and where you see us going on a digital net standpoint, like, what do you think that the past versus the future of what marketing looks like on a digital space is going to be?
Well, it's funny because you talk about 20 years ago. 20 years ago, a lot of people who had brick and mortar businesses didn't have websites, right? We didn't have our cell phones guiding us via map. We had to print out MapQuest, which means you needed to go and put your information on the internet so that MapQuest knew where to find you, or you physically had to have that business's address to input in to print your MapQuest so that you could get to said destination. Because at that point, yes, we were officially done with paper maps, right? Everything was still starting to become on the phone. I remember Verizon, I think, was one of the first to have VZ Navigator on the phone. And that was like the most revolutionary thing ever. And that was probably close to 20 years ago. So you think about then, and you think about now. And I want to talk about some of the things that I see that people are still doing that should not be happening now. And then we can kind of talk about the future. But there's a lot of businesses that have terrible websites here in 2026. I mean, absolutely terrible. They aren't keeping them up to date. It says copyright 2021 or 2020 on it, right? And to them, they're like, oh, well, that's not that long ago. Well, yeah, that's 6 years ago. That's not good. Secondly, search engine optimization has become more important than ever, as we all know. Now we've got to be optimizing for the chat GPTs of the world. And a lot of these websites don't answer the questions of what somebody's actually even looking for within that practice, within that business. So at this day and age, to have a really, really bad website is just criminal to your growth. personally. I will die on that hill. I think that that's one of those things that I see often and I would love to not see. A lot of businesses aren't running ads, and it depends on what type of business you are as to how effective that is. You and I have talked a lot about that. But as we move into the future with this era of AI, I think there is going to be a lot of room for optimization. I think we're going to be able to tell before we hit spend on an ad campaign whether it's going to be a flop. I think we're going to have cool technology that's going to say, hey, I've A/B tested your creatives, your messaging, and this campaign C, is going to outperform campaign A and B tenfold. Put all your money behind C. Whereas right now, we're still doing that in a very manual fashion. And I think it's going to get smarter and it's going to get better of what's going to resonate. However, the smarter and better things get, I do think it's going to be a higher cost to entry. I think we're going to see ad spend costs go up across the board, across pretty much every platform. I don't know if that answers the question, but
No, and I think what you're saying is like basically we have to double down on our digital imprint is what I'm reading into this, and evolving it to recognizing that, AI, which has become literally like a changing force. I think late adopters are now adopting AI is what I want to say. I no longer think AI is an early adoption tool. I think it is expanded, and it's so funny because my wife said to me the other day, she said, honey, I'm afraid to admit this, but I think chat is my best friend. And I'm like, what? She's like, no, literally, like it's like my counselor, it's my therapist, it's my advisor, it's my fitness journey, it's my cooking coach. Like it does everything. And so I bring this up because we start to rely on this. If my wife is calling chat and she's a late adopter, her best friend, she's treating it like a trusted source. And I bring this up because if we look at this, she is trusting a machine learning engine as her trusted source. Now, Leila, where does that machine learning grab its data?
it grabs it from all of the trusted sources. And so the more credible you are in this digital world, that is where it's gaining and gleaning all of its information from. So credibility is key, which means, hey, having AI do everything for you on your digital side of your business will end up kicking you a little bit in the butt because it wants to know what Brandon really has to say and think about something. It doesn't want to know what Brandon and 85 other people with credibility have to say about it because it's already pulled those answers. It wants some original thought. It also, the credibility piece is big. This is going to be the revival of PR, of putting out news press releases. Newswire is going to be making a ton of money because that still is a very credible thing. If you're putting the money to get your information out and syndicated onto all of these random different news sources, right? And we know how all that works. You don't usually get people calling you because like, I saw your press release, right? That's something of 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. But I think we're going to see that becoming more and more important because it's still a credibility building tool. And I think PR kind of died there for a little while, and now it's going to have a complete comeback.
100%. And what's interesting is we're going to start to recognize we already recognize what is AI and what's not. You can tell when something's been designed AI wise. You can tell when something's been written AI. And like, Leila, I think you'll appreciate this, get a kick out of this. So put up a job ad a little over 2 weeks ago. Okay. I think it will be 3 weeks on Friday. Over 300 applicants. And in that 300 applicants, at least 50 of those applications had the same exact verbatim answers to my questions on the application, meaning they used AI.
No way.
So all of a sudden I'm like, oh, so I asked this question in my application, which was like, show me that you read this job post. Like, what are we looking for? What does it pay? What do we not offer? And literally they just went to the job ad, posted the question into chat, and I got the same answer on like 50 applications. I thought it was pretty incredible just to see how reliant people are already becoming on someone else sourcing information and communicating information.
Oh
And
my
so
gosh.
I bring this up because today what we're talking about is attracting patients while you sleep, creating your digital net. And a lot of practices right now tell me the same thing. They're like, hey, Brandon, this is the DNA, Leila, of what I'm seeing. They're like, I don't need patients. I have a wait list. Okay. That's their first statement. I have a wait list. I don't need patients. I'm like, okay, so what's your problem? Well, I'm losing money. I'm like, why are you losing money? Well, insurances aren't paying me well. I'm like, so you're taking, and this is the piece that people don't recognize. People are switching and turning off marketing. They're taking insurance contracts as the driving force of marketing. They're saying that, hey, if I contract with Blue Cross, there's so many Blue Cross patients that can't find a provider. That's my funnel. But with that, the cost of that client acquisition in lost revenue is greater than if you sourced private pay patients for yourself using a marketing budget. And I think that's what people aren't recognizing. Create your payer identity, create the revenue that you want to generate, market for your client versus taking on a payer source that defines your marketing approach. And so it's almost like you've got a trash can fire and you just keep flaming the trash can fire. And so
You just add
today
more to it.
I want you to put the lens on this episode, audience. I want you to see it as I can attract $1 million customer if I market and have the right solution. And solution oriented marketing is very critical, playing into pain points. And so I say it this way, Leila. I always use this analogy when I speak. I'm like, how many people know someone that has died of cancer in the last 5 years? Everyone raises their hand. I go, how much would you leverage in research to have a proven cause so that no one ever dies from cancer again? And people basically are like, I'll give up every dollar in my name. Like, when something's meaningful enough, people will find a way to get what you have to offer. But we have to get in front of them. We have to communicate right. We have to have the marketing experience that engages and optimizes them. And so when I'm talking about attracting patients when they sleep, one of the things I talk about is how are we structuring content? How are we structuring our presence digitally so that we are actively engaging people in an ongoing basis versus a specific, hey, I'm going to record this podcast live and see the live streams and this and that. How are we building that? And so the first thing I want people to understand is why your websites are failing you. And so I love your feedback, but in my opinion, the biggest thing is people are creating brochures as websites, and I call it billboards. They're like, hey, I created this in 1999 and it just shows what I am. And it's literally like a static image that says who we are, what we do, and how to contact us. And I'm like, it's a billboard.
Yep.
Why is this failing these business owners? Why does that not work in today's environment?
So you want your website, especially in private practices, to be your lead generating site. So it needs to be built around your patient's journey and not the provider's ego, outdated information, what the provider may think is important. Most of the time, what we see with these private practices, especially after meeting so many of them at your conference, is that these are owner operators who are also trying to put on their marketing hat. And so what they think is important as a clinician and as the person trying to run and keep things moving is what they think is important. However, that's not what the digital marketing world would deem as, hey, this is critical. So a couple of things that you can do, they're easy to implement. A lot of people can take these away today, is you need to have a clear call to action and it needs to be upfront. So what exactly is it that you do and how are you going to help that person? So if it's speech therapy, we are specialized in speech therapy for children ages XY, XY, XY. To learn more, book a free consultation call, right? There's that. Now let's get into talking to their pain points. So I like to keep it really simple. We like the PIS framework. So problem, agitate, solution. The problem is your child's speech is still underdeveloped or they aren't speaking at age 6. I don't know what the typical age ranges are for this. I'm not a clinician. I'm sorry to anyone I offend. You agitate. You say it's holding them back in school and social settings. You aren't able to communicate with your child in the way that you expect and need to be able to communicate at age 6. Solution. Our team of X, Y, and Z, 13, 15 providers are specialized in exactly the problem to your thing. We offer this types of therapies, blank, blank, blank. Then we need a trust signal. We need to be able to show real staff photos. I don't want to see fake photos of what people would think a practitioner would look like on your website. If you have a team of folks, showcase them, get some great photos. They don't have to be perfect, but it goes a long way. We want to see reviews. We want to see other people who've had great success working with your practice. And then, of course, we want to see those credentials that your team possesses so that there's, once again, that next factor of silent trust. And then really, really important is most of the time people are choosing something that is local to them. I think it would probably be rare, correct me once again if I'm wrong, that if I'm in Arizona, I'm going to hire someone in New York for my kids' speech therapy needs, correct?
Yep.
It would be better for me to find someone here in Scottsdale. So your location-based tools that go onto your website are really critically important. On every single page, I recommend having your locations listed in your footers. Of course, having a location, how to find us page, a contact us page, having some multiple redundancies there is great. It's also really good on the back end of things for Google to say, hey, it is very clear to me exactly where these practices are located within this group.
I also think it's really important for you to see yourself as a client. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll change industries to help myself, because a lot of the time these owners are seeing it through what I call a licensure look. Hey, the child's going to benefit because of this, but as a parent, that doesn't mean anything to me. So example, I'll say it this way. A year ago, I got a new car. Part of my decision making in getting that new car. So what would the manufacturer say? The manufacturer say, oh, we're the most comfortable ride. We're a luxury ride. We got the best gas mileage, all that stuff. That actually wasn't what I was trying to solve. Okay. What was meaningful to me, and I'm just trying to say, how do we separate our traditional look from the patient experience? I wanted a car where I could easily get it serviced and I could have a replacement car ready for me at all times. That was my number one objective, honestly. And I know that's a weird objective. You're like, oh my gosh, Brandon, like, really? And I'm like, yeah, I work a lot. I want to be able to drop my car off, and I do not want to sit in a car waiting room, or I do not want to wait for a shuttle. Now, that's one out of very few people, but I'm just giving you an example. So I say it in the sense that it might be that you say, hey, we've got a luxury waiting room where you can do work and co-working. It could be that we have a coffee shop next door. It could be that we have afternoon hours. It could be we have same day cancellations. What is that differentiator that's going to be unique, where you find identity from people that necessarily not everyone's looking for, but really stand out?
Absolutely. What's going to make that experience stand out so much more compared to everybody else that you're competing with. I could not agree with that more. I'm going to think about some car providers and think, does anybody ever offer, or at least lead with telling me that when you come to bring your car to get serviced here, that you will always have a loaner car available? Most of the time I'm told you need to be the first in line, and then we'll give you one. Yep. That's so interesting.
Yep.
I
and
like
it's
that.
interesting because it can even differ from dealer to dealer. So one of the dealers that I was looking at for the same exact car said, we need 2 weeks notice to secure you a loaner. The other one said, we have plenty of loaners. You can show up same day, and we'll literally, we specialize in getting you in and out in less than 15 minutes is what they told me.
Sold.
And for me, that's a selling point. Now, again, different people have different value propositions. So there are people that say, I will spend more money to know that I can get my kid into back-to-back therapy in the afternoon. I want something close proximity to my house. So all these things are really important. And I think it comes down to, our website should reflect not only a solution to a need out there, but it should differentiate in ways that you align a unique proposition audience, not a global audience. Because a lot of the time where I find private practices are failing is they're trying to be great for everyone versus attracting their ideal client, if that makes sense. And 100%. So it's that big net. It's like, I'm going to throw this huge net out there, and Brandon, I got 150 fish. You can't fight me on that. I'm like, I'd rather have 25 and know that I can eat all 25.
Yeah, absolutely. The unique value proposition is a very big deal. And I think that also goes back to, once again, you have to think about that when you're putting the positioning out there and your statements of the things that you do. A lot of websites, like you said, our brochure is, hi, we are X, Y, and Z therapy clinic. We offer these 5 services. We're open from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and on Saturdays from whenever, click here to book, right? And there's nothing personal. There's nothing that's speaking to anybody's pain point. And at the end of the day, we also need to remember we're speaking to the parents' pain points 99% of the time, because the parent, right, is the person who is making that decision that they are going to take their child to that clinic. It is not the kid online looking for help for themselves. So think about, what are you hearing from your patients day in and day out? The good feedback and the bad feedback. The feedback of saying, you guys were able to solve for X, Y, and Z that nobody else has been able to solve for. And I've been to 6 other places, and this has been what has changed that. That feedback that you got in that intimate setting is what you want to take and bring into your marketing. And the flip side, if somebody says, I really don't like how you guys approach X, Y, and Z, that feedback is really good to be able to take into building out that user experience, but also saying, hey, we don't do whatever it is that you're seeing a lot of other practices do. Call that out so that someone who's shopping 24 hours a day online says, you know what, that's what I keep running into. It's so great that they recognize that that's a huge problem in this industry. I'm going to schedule that call.
Yep. Yep. And I think as I look at websites and stuff, the other thing, I mean, this has been around a while, but just kind of putting it into perspective, because again, we still see those really awful websites. I'm a big believer that we need to look at load speed. I think load speed is killing a lot of websites right now. You're putting these crazy videos that are drumming it down and it's not being effective. And I think the ability in testing your mobile website design to your desktop design, because a lot of the time what happens is you're designing around the desktop, and then when you convert it to a mobile view, it really looks wonky. And I use that word wonky a lot because for me, when I'm trying to get into something and study something, kind of like a book, like how that book looks does impact the way that I'm able to take in the content. And so load speed, obviously mobile, anything else on the websites that you're seeing are causing major blisters in practices being successful.
One really dumb thing that we notice a lot is that most high-end sites are built on WordPress. WordPress typically requires lots of plugins. If you are somebody who said, oh, well, I got my site done in 2020 and it looks fine to me and I don't need to update it and everything's good. Well, all of those plugins are constantly getting updated, but with older sites, a lot of the times they start to break because now WordPress is no longer supporting plugins of this age or of this type. There's so many different things that go on behind the scenes, and then certain functions on your website, and you are busy running your business. You are not sitting there on privatepracticesurvivalguide.com all day, just refreshing, going and clicking through all of the pages that pertain to your podcast. So it's important to have somebody either on your team or paying somebody as an outside source to say, hey, keep all of this up to date for me, because I don't want someone to go to this page and say 404 error. Oops, that doesn't work. Or my booking link. Oh, I don't know why it's not working. And for some reason, it's just something on the back end that you didn't anticipate, that didn't happen last week, but is happening now. And you don't hear about it for another 6 months. That stuff happens all the time. And it's something that I want people to be more aware of, because we can easily get ahead of that stuff.
The other thing I'm going to say, and this is me coming back to my own values, is responsiveness. I want a website that when I complete their call to action, whatever that is, that I get an acknowledgement that that call to action went through, and that there's a series of kind of updates or reminders. Hey, within 24 hours, you should hear from us. Hey, we know it's been 24 hours. No one's reached out. We're still working on this. There's got to be some kind of path of expectation, because like recently, so right now I'm planning my daughter's bat mitzvah, and I reached out to all these different DJ companies and all the stuff, right? Less than 50% responded within 7 days. Less than 50%. Can't have it.
Can't.
There's too many
Nope.
options. Literally yesterday, someone texted me. They didn't email me. They didn't do anything. They texted and said, hey, we're following up on your inquiry. I'm like, you never reached out. I already went under contract. It's been 2 weeks. Now, anyone that knows me, I move fast. I don't
Yes.
wait a month. When I'm ready to do it, I'm doing it. And
Yep.
so with your website, whether you're integrating Go High Level or any of these CRM type tools, you must have a process in place that prioritizes communication, because you're going to so much length to acquire that lead to do nothing with the lead is the biggest waste of money possible.
Oh, it's criminal. Having those automations set up, especially in this day and age, is easier than it's ever been. And it's so, so important. There's a flip side. I have been on the other side of this where I filled out a lead form, someone has called or texted me, I've connected with them. But now I'm still marked as somebody who they haven't reached out to. So I'm getting all these automated texts, all of these emails, and I'm like, I've already spoke to somebody. Put me into a different phase of this because it's getting annoying.
Yep.
And I've stopped talking to potential vendors and partners because of that, because I get frustrated with the fatigue of just constantly being bombarded when, hey, guys, we've spoke, we're good. I'm just waiting on some pricing or a contract at this point. So make sure that you take the time to test all of that too. And I think simplicity but clarity is the best way to go when it comes to figuring out automations.
Absolutely. And on that, the number one asset that we're trying to achieve with our clients is trust. And when our automations are broken, trust gets lost. And so you can go to so much efforts to have your trust broken in that way. It's just not worth it. Really understanding. And that's where I come back to. I'd rather nail the small net of fish correctly than go after so many fish and create a non-trusting environment. And I think a lot of companies don't recognize that. And they're like, well, Brandon, I have 100 people that want my company, my business, my service, my solution. I'm like, yeah, but of that 100 people, how many of those 100 people trust you? How many of those 100 people do not trust you? And what does that non-trust look like in the impact of your digital net and your digital presence, et cetera? You know, that's why we look at Google reviews. That's why we look at Glassdoor reviews. That's why we look at Yelp or whatnot. Is it's not that we trust that person. What we're really looking for is who are the people that don't trust that business. Like that's really the game. The game is, and I'm not talking 1 star. I'm saying like that 3 or 4 star journey. We want to find out what broke that trust in that journey.
Completely.
And so as I look at this, the next thing I do want to bring up just, while I have you is social media. If you had talked to me before we met, I would have told you I don't believe in social media for private practices, ironically. And the reason for it I recognized was I didn't believe in the way people were using social media. Not that, I mean, obviously social media is very effective. It's one of the biggest vehicles of revenue and all these different things. But what I found was there was not a lot of ROI for private practices because they were using it wrong. They were doing, in my opinion, cliche education, and they were posting to post. And so it was content that did not have meaning. And because the content did not have meaning, it was time-based work and time-based fulfillment instead of return on investment fulfillment. And so what are a couple strategies that you're seeing small business owners can be successful with kind of utilizing social media today as a vehicle, and how much of successful social media can be outsourced versus in-house, et cetera?
I think that always will depend on how much you can do in-house versus outsource on your industry. So I don't have a solid answer for that. If you're running a tech company, I think you can outsource all of it. If you are selling, I'm actually going to tell a success story from the Growth Code conference. This is really cool, and I've been waiting to tell you this anxiously. I got a booking on our calendar, and she owned a practice. And I was like, well, the only reason why somebody who owns a private practice would be finding us is because they had to have been at Growth Code. So get on this consultation call, and she goes, oh my gosh, I saw your guys' session at the Growth Code conference, and I literally took everything that you and Greg Todd said to do, and I did it. And she goes, and my social media blew up, and now I'm making all of this money. And I'm like, do I outsource? Like, what do I do? So we had the best conversation. She's the perfect success story because she's not somebody who comes, listens, goes home, and does all the bad habits that she was doing before. Our main point of our message was, you have got to be able to build trust, right? And if you're trying to be able to sell, say, a digital product, which is what Greg Todd talked about, to an audience, that can be anyone in the world who is struggling with what you solve for. So what he has to say is important is her practice that she owns right now is on wait list. So she's not looking for more bodies to come in. but she knows that she still has a revenue problem, that she needs to be making more money, but she needs to think of new ways to make that money. So what does she do? She said, I never even considered being on TikTok before I listened to you guys. She goes, so I started a TikTok account and I decided I would post one TikTok video every single day. And she's like, and I've never done a video of myself. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I focused on the frameworks you guys talked about. And I have, 20 digital products that I've already created that were just something that we were selling in the office to people who'd already come in. But, they were just sitting there basically on the digital shelf. She goes, and, within a couple of days, I had like a couple of videos that went viral. I've sold hundreds of my digital products. And she's like, and they're not expensive products, but it's been incredible. It's been crazy. And so that's why I wanted to schedule this call with you guys, because what you said worked. And so there's a couple of pieces that people need to think about in the private practice realm of this. Is that one, she was talking directly to parents who are struggling with a very specific thing. That specific thing, her resource was a helpful guide that for $25, that parent could potentially find relief in, right? And so $25 decision when you are dealing with something that is really, really ruining your child's quality of life, easy decision. But they trusted her. They know, hey, she owns a private practice. She's been doing this for a very long time, and she's very likable on camera. Okay, $25, it's worth risking $25 to kind of see and roll the dice. She's had repeat customers because that first thing that they purchased was great. And now they're looking at everything else that she has to offer. So she went from just selling on Amazon to then creating a stand store. I said, the next phase is you want to own all of this. You want to bring this into your own Shopify store so that nobody else is taking cuts out of it. It's besides your payment processor, of course, it's all yours. So I said, let's talk in 90 days. Like, keep doing what you're doing. It is not time to outsource this. What you're doing is working. Keep doing it. So I think a lot of people overcomplicate. But before they can overcomplicate, they haven't been consistent enough to be able to see a result. They said, well, I did 4 videos over the last 6 weeks and 4 likes on it. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why people don't like me. And you have to think about your content structure. Was that structured to actually be something that's credibility, trust building, and educational that solves a problem to the person who's watching it? If it wasn't, there's the first problem. Second, 4 videos in 6 weeks is not going to do anything for anyone. It's like going to the gym 4 times in 6 months. You're not going to see a noticeable result from that, but mentally you might feel a little bit better because you did it. You have got to just hold yourself to the highest level of accountability. And I think that 30-day challenge that she put herself on is the perfect example, because now she's got an entirely new revenue stream for her practice. She's getting so much more exposure as a human being, as being credible within her niche, and all around a definite win, but it takes the consistency.
That's awesome. I love that. I mean, on so many fronts. One, you got to help someone. 2, they got to build a reality they didn't think was possible. 3, they learned about it at my conference. Like, all those things are just so rewarding and obviously so powerful. And so I think that the big thing is understanding what you're trying to achieve. And I think that's what a lot of people don't name the objective. And I think what we're hearing is she named an objective, she delivered an objective, and then she capitalized on that objective. And I think that's something that social media serves a purpose when you have an intention and an action and a target. And so I commend that incredibly. My last thing for you is just this thing called SEO.
Yes.
SEO, I feel like, used to be the vehicle of business growth on a digital floor plate. And I think it just means something different today, search engine optimization. A lot of these practice owners are just looking for people within a very small radius of their location. Does SEO still matter? What does it matter? How do we define value when we're looking at a local search standpoint versus a national search standpoint?
So I think the local is the biggest piece for people who are listening to this show. So let's not waste our time on the national approach, because it's very, very different. But a couple of things when we're talking about local SEO and not broad SEO is your Google business profile page has to be fully optimized and it needs to be actively managed. And what actively managed means is that we are constantly asking people for reviews. So that process should technically be automated. Once somebody has checked out of your practice, a day or 2 later, they get an automated email. Brandon, it was so great to have you in. We love working with Susie. If you had a great experience, we would appreciate a quick Google review. It goes a really long way in making sure that, we're able to continue to serve our community. Great. I feel good about that because I want to continue to be a part of this community. You'll go, hopefully take the time to do it. A lot of people have incentivized reviews as another method of getting them. That is now going to be dinged by Google, which is something that we can talk about on a later date. But a lot of changes are coming to Google Business. But actively managed, back to the main point, is you're adding content to your Google Business profile. And a lot of people don't realize that if you're taking the time to put social media content out there, you can also schedule that directly to your Google Business profile. So all of the scheduling tools allow you to do that. So you don't need to go and reinvent the wheel, do only Google Business profile specific content. If it's static content, post it to your Google Business profile. All of your business updates should be getting posted. Hey, we're going to be closed on these days. Hey, we're running a summertime promotion. We're doing a boot camp series for the next 6 weeks over the summer where we're going to be doing X, Y, and Z with kids. Here's the price tag. All of that stuff that you might be printing out and putting on the walls of your practice, take that and make sure that you're actively putting that into your Google Business profile. Because oftentimes it's where someone is first going to see you. Secondly, location-specific service pages. Those are very helpful. You get to genuinely put, here are the services we provide on your Google Business profile. We choose not to add that to ours. We have a handful of services, but I don't necessarily want everybody online coming to us for those things. There's a couple of things that we highlight and focus on for ours. I think it's good to be discerning with that. So picking out what are my top 3 to 4 services that I would want to highlight on this part of my page. And then, of course, having the ability to get in touch immediately, that's critical as well. But Google is going to continue to reward people who are being active on their platforms. So the more that you're feeding in to the Google machine, the more it wants to reward you. Making sure that you're also tying in your social accounts to your Google Business profile is a big deal. Google owns YouTube, second largest search engine in the world, which is why we've seen content like this do as well as it does for people who are looking for specific answers, because it's going to show a YouTube video ahead of pretty much everything else. So if you've got YouTube videos, make sure that that is all cohesively tied in to your Google ecosystem, if you will. Making sure that everything's consistent too. Let's forget about Google. We have Yahoo. People still use Yahoo. There's AOL. There's Apple Maps, right? Then, of course, there's Google Maps, which connects to your Google Business profile. But if you haven't set up your Apple Maps profile, you're missing out on a huge market segment, because if somebody's looking for something just on their phone on their Apple Maps, you could show up, and you need to optimize and take the time to properly set all of that up. Same with Yahoo, same with any other search engine out there. Lastly, a great tool to do this if you were just trying to DIY it in-house, it's called brightlocal.com. Great for local SEO. Highly recommend it.
Wonderful, wonderful. The other thing I'll throw out just as a last thing is sometimes what we do with our Google My Business profile, and this may be changing depending on what you tell us in future episodes, but this idea of geotagging and creating geofences so that we can expand our reach of our location to people. So maybe we service a 50-mile radius or something like that, and there's ways to build that. And so as we look at this, the reason why I brought up national was not for us to talk about national. It was, there's a lot of marketing agencies that sell you, oh, we're going to do SEO for you, and they're not doing anything that's relevant to the needs of your business. They've got their on-page SEO, their regular garbage that they sell, and there's no actual strategic impact that they're delivering in relation to what your business needs. So as a service-based business with a defined coverage area, local search is going to play a larger impact in ROI for you. So Leila, as everyone knows, I think the world of you and your team and your group. Why don't you tell everyone how they can get in touch with you, how they can learn from you, and how they can grow?
You can visit us at pscreative.co. If you're interested in podcast and video, that's psstudios.co. And then our Instagram is PS Creative Studios. And I think all of our other platforms are also at PS Creative Studios. So easy. You can always email me as well, Leila at pscreative.co.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Leila, for joining us in this episode. I'm excited for all our future episodes. And thank you for tuning into the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast. Don't forget to like us, subscribe, write a review, share us with your friends, your family, your colleagues, because together we can thrive, not just survive. Thank you for tuning in to the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast. I'm incredibly grateful to each and every one of you. Exciting news. We're now available everywhere, from Spotify to Apple Podcasts to YouTube or anywhere you like to listen to your podcasts. So watch, listen, and reach out. If you loved this episode, please drop a 5-star review. It truly means the world to me. Are you looking for more ways to elevate your practice? If so, now is your chance. Reach out, go to my website, or email me at brandon@wellnessworksmp.com. And remember, it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving.